Hey folks, I'm Dustin Cormier here with How to Rock Astrology. Today we're going to have a short little episode talking about the evolution of the nakshatras in Vedic literature, showing their roots in the Rig Veda and other Vedas, and how those roots and their information trickled down into medieval Puranic literature, and from there went to astronomical and astrological shastras and Jyotish Shastra. This whole episode is a continuation on the divine forces of the Lunar Nakshatras by Radha. This is chapter 3, the evolution of the nakshatras. She begins with a quote from the Aitareya Veda, I believe. Let me just check. The Atharva Veda, which is the Shanikaya Samhita. And the quote says, "Let them, the nakshatras, of the series of 28, propitious, helpful, together allot to me acquisition. I go forward to acquisition and possession. I go forward to possession and acquisition. Homage be to day and night." It's from the Atharva Veda, chapter 19, section 8, verse 2. That's a reference to the 28 nakshatras, which were used once in prajna or electional astrology, which I've talked about in previous episodes. So the nakshatras are a refinement or a mystical derived classification of the 33 devatas. Some of them are interwoven in some of the nakshatras. The nakshatra is a wonderful, apparent, psychedelic mystery whose roots are essentially primarily given in the Taittiriya Brahmana as the 27 nakshatras relating to having an astrological sense of personality. And it's also the Taittiriya Brahmana, I believe, is one of the first examples, not one of the only, but I believe one of the first examples of the nakshatras being displayed as starting at Kritika, ruled by Agni, the initiating force of things. But I digress. Before it gets there, we are first going to read about the Rig Veda and Aitareya Brahmana as regards the roots of the nakshatras. So, in the Rig Veda, the nakshatras are pondered. Quote, "Whither by day depart the nakshatras that shine at night, set high in heaven above us?" It's from the first chapter, the 24th section of the Rig Veda. The nakshatras are admired, quote, "like a dark steed adorned with pearls, as the fathers have decorated heaven with the nakshatras." Paired with the moon, it's noted in the Rig Veda that thus Soma, the moon, in the midst of all these nakshatras, hath his place. It's from chapter 10, section 85, verse 2. Now, the author goes on. "Yet, only Tishya or Pushya, Magha, and the Arjunis, which is the Falgunis, are mentioned by name as nakshatras in the Rig Veda." Now, the lack of nakshatra references in the Rig Veda prompts many authorities to conclude that this lunar-based system was developed at a much later period. But the author notes that this supposition is unwarranted. Firstly, the Rig Veda mentions the nakshatras collectively in several stanzas, such as chapter 1, section 24, verse 10, chapter 50, verse 2, chapter 3, section 54, verse 19, etc. Secondly, a handful of individual nakshatras are cited by name. Finally, as a spiritual scripture, the Rig Veda was never intended as an astronomical treatise. Thus, one would not expect it to contain detailed or comprehensive nakshatra information, because the people who are dealing with the consciousness and concepts of 33 devatas upon which the nakshatras were based were dealing more with the mythos and the narrative of the psychedelic realities of these gods and these devatas and their relevance to human consciousness, their perennial relevance to human consciousness, regardless of the astronomical facts. The relevance to consciousness came first, and then later on, astronomical discoveries were made about the nakshatras. So the Rig Veda is composed exclusively of invocation and glorification hymns to the gods. It acknowledges the lunar nakshatras through hundreds of prayers to their ruling devatas. Of its just over 1,000 hymns, 2/3 of the Rig Vedic hymns are dedicated to the following 5 nakshatras. 25% is dedicated to Indra, 21% is dedicated to Agni, 11% is dedicated to Soma, 7% is dedicated to the Vishvadevas, and 5% is dedicated to the Ashvini Kumaras. So notice that over 45% of the hymns are dedicated to Indra and Agni. All other nakshatra devatas are likewise eulogized in the Rig Veda, as illustrated in their individual devata chapter in this book, as we're going to see later in the series. Many of them are praised within the stanzas of those hymns dedicated to other gods. In similar fashion, the Aitareya Brahmana of the Rig Veda contains countless mantras to the nakshatra devatas, while also embellishing upon their escapades. In a legend that recounts Prajalpati's desire for his own daughter, the Aitareya Brahmana adds Rohini, Mrigashirshas, and Ardra to the list of individually cited nakshatras. So some Rig Veda texts do contain some reference to some nakshatras. Now, the next level of derivation we can find in the Taittiriya Samhita and Taittiriya Brahmana. The Taittiriya Brahmana is the real ringer of this modern day conception of the 27 lunar aphorisms. In its instruction for the Agni Kayana, which is the construction of the sacrificial fire altar of the Yagyas, the Taittiriya Samhita designates part of the 5th layer of altar bricks, i.e., the top layer representing heaven, as the nakshatra bricks. Of course, the yajna, the sacrificial fire ceremony, is a psychedelic, symbolic transliteration of all Vedic knowledge. The 5th layer of the altar bricks in this psychedelic symbology represents heaven, the nakshatra bricks. The priest puts down the nakshatra bricks. These are the lights of the sky. Verily, he wins them. The nakshatras are the lights of the doers of good deeds. Verily, he wins them. Verily, also, he makes these lights into a reflection. Comes from the Taittiriya Samhita. More significantly, in chapter 4, section 4, verse 10 of the Taittiriya Samhita, we are provided the first listing, absent of Abhijit, the 28th nakshatra, of the nakshatras and their devatas. It uses many ancient appellations, including Tishya for Pushya, Rohini for Jesta, Vikruchau as Mula, Shrona as Shravana, Shravishtas as Danishta, Prashtapadas as the Bhadrapadas, and Apaparanis as Bharani. Since asterisms were of primary importance in determining the proper timing of sacrificial rites, it is little surprise that the Brahmana of the Taittiriya Samhita contains numerous references to individual nakshatras relating to time and auspicious of timing for events. The complete listing of the nakshatras, inclusive of Abhijit, the 28th nakshatra, and their devatas, is found in the Taittiriya Brahmana, specifically verse 1, section 5, chapter 1, section 5, verse 1, and chapter 3, section 1, verses 1 and 2. In this same scripture is this idea of the foundation above, or parastats, and below, avastats, for each nakshatra. We're going to talk more about these when we get into the Ernst Wilhelm and Vic Dicara translations of these Taittiriya Brahmana scriptures, which includes the parastat and the avastat. The translator, which there's also a derivation of these, which I might read from this book, and it's translated by Bhatta Bhaskara. This translator, Bhatta Bhaskara, adds the nakshatra's creative power, or the Shakti, and other valuable commentary in this book. Later passages contain their invitatory, or Puronuvakya, and oblation yajya verses, and sacrificial wishes, or ishtis. In the Yajurveda and Brahmanas, all nakshatra listings begin with Agni-ruled Kritika. This is likely due to the vernal equinox occurring in Kritika around the time of 2500 BC, and suggests the approximate date of the later Vedas and Brahmana scriptures. That is something very interesting. She is claiming that the only reason why Kritika is given succeeding prominence in the Taittiriya Brahmana and Vedic texts written around this time is because the vernal equinox occurred when the sun was in the sign of Kritika about 2,500 years ago. Of course, the precession of the equinox has made it so that now, when the sun reaches the vernal equinox, the sun is in a new nakshatra, which would be, by nowadays, probably the sign of Uttara Bhadrapada, I believe. It's a very interesting thing for her to claim in this book. Interestingly, the ishtis to the nakshatras ceremony in the Taittiriya Brahmana, ishtis meaning those are sacrificial wishes. The ishtis to the nakshatra ceremony in the Taittiriya Brahmana distinguishes between Deva nakshatras, it's the Kritika through Vishaka, and the Yama nakshatras, which is Anuradha through Bharani. The Deva nakshatras are identified with the gods, and the Devayana, the path leading to the Devas. The Yama nakshatras are associated with the ancestors, and Pitrayana, the path leading to the ancestors. These two paths are traversed by the recently deceased. Interesting. So it's like some kind of path that is traversed when we die. Very psychedelic. So then the next section is about the Atharva Veda and auxiliary texts. The nakshatras are also hymned to in the Atharva Veda. Quote from the Atharva Veda says, "The brilliant lights, the nakshatras, shining in heaven together, which through the world glide on in rapid motion. With songs I worship, seeking the 28-fold for its favor." That's from chapter 19, section 7, verse 1. And then elsewhere we read, "The nakshatras pass away like thieves, departing in the night before the all-beholding sun. That's also in the Atharva Veda. So, although not correlated with their devatas, all 28 nakshatras are adorned in the following Atharva Veda hymn entitled "To the Lunar Nakshatras for Blessings." Seeking favor of the 28-fold wondrous ones, shining in the sky together, ever moving, hasting in the creation, I worship with songs the days, the firmament. Easy of invocation for me be the Kritikas and Rohini, be Mrigashirsha's excellent, and Ardra healthful, be the two Punarvasus pleasantness, Pushya what is agreeable, Ashlesha light, Panu. The Maghas progress Ayana for me. Be the former Purva Falgunis and Hasta here auspicious. Be Chitra propitious and Svati easy for me. Be the two Vishakhas bestowal. That's Vishaka and Jesta. That's just Vishaka. The two devatas of Vishaka. Anuradha, easy of invocation. Jesta is a good asterism. Mula, uninjured. Let the former Ashadas give me food. Let the latter one bring refreshment. Let Abhijit give me what is auspicious. Let Shravana and Shravishtas make good prosperity. Let Shatapishak bring to me what is great widely, freedom. Let the double Prashtapadas bring to me good protection, that's the Bhadrapadas. Let Revati and Ashvayuj bring fortune to me. Let Paranis bring to me wealth. And this is all characteristics that we could see in the nakshatras that relates to the given deities. That comes from Atharva Veda, chapter 19, section 7, verses 1 through 5. So there's a real close connection there in that ancient Atharva Veda to the personalities of the nakshatras. Many of the ancient nakshatra names established in the Taittiriya Samhita and its Brahmana are preserved in the Atharva Veda and supporting texts. However, the following conform to the more traditional designations cited in Brihat Samhita, that's Pushya or Tishya, Svati, which is derived from Nistya, and Shravana, which is derived from Shrona. Of significance, this is something that Vic Dicara has talked about, his old switcheroo. The reversal of Aryaman and Bagha in the Taittiriya Brahmanas. Aryaman was once the ruler of Uttara Falguni, and Bagha was the ruler of Purva Falguni. This reversal now suggests that Aryaman is actually the ruler of Purva Falguni, and Bagha is the feminine latter ruler of Uttara Falguni. And this reversal is carried forward in all future scriptures and Jyotisha Shastra. In summary, Nakshatra's ancient appellation is of great significance, for it reveals meanings often lost with the passage of time. The author offers personal commentary and explanatory notes for each scriptural variance in the applicable Nakshatra Devata chapter, when we do finally get there. So, that was a little bit more on the derivations of the nakshatras through the Vedas, a real clinical epistemological look at at some of the names and derivations of the nakshatras as given in an American academic account by the author Rada. Now from here, we're going to do 2 more introductions describing the nature of the nakshatras as a whole from Ernst Wilhelm as well as from Vic Dicara. That's going to be coming in the next 2 episodes. I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the series. I'm Dustin Cormier for How to Rock Astrology. Thanks for watching. I hope these videos in this series aids you and illuminates you on your path to seeking the bliss and ecstasy that is within one and that is within all. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you on the next episode.